What's up, grade 11 mindsetters? Welcome to your Life Sciences show on a Wednesday with Looney and my real G for today. Aslam,
Looney, what's happening?
are you?
Are we ready? Are you
Yeah.
ready for double trouble?
Yes, I
Are
am.
you going to
Aslam.
survive?
Yes, I
hoping-
always do.
I'm hoping you had BioPlus today.
No,
We're going
yeah.
to keep you on your toes today.
Don't do that. What are we doing for the grade 11 today?
Grade 11s, we continue with environment, guys. Welcome, grade 11s. We're busy with environment and we're looking at human population.
All right, mindsetters, I hope you're excited for your lesson with our very stylish Aslam today. See, he's got a hoodie on. He's feeling very. Okay, yeah, anyway. Hope you guys are excited for your lesson. Don't forget to hit us up on Facebook, on facebook.com/learnextra. Our Twitter handle is @learnextra, and you can get all the show notes, the videos, and the schedules on learn.mindset.co.za. And if you want to win a Casio calculator, all you need to do is go to our Facebook page. There is a test yourself link there. You click on that link, you submit your entry by completing all your answers and everything. Click on the submit button, and then you'll stand a chance to win a Casio calculator. Remember, we do have another competition going on called Get Connected, and all it is that you need to vote by liking your favorite teacher's picture, but then you go through a process. All the information is on our Facebook page, though. Step 1 says you go to a career page, you choose your favorite teacher, and then you go back to our Facebook page, you click on the link of your favorite teacher, you like their picture, and then you go back to the competition graphic and you share that. All the information, guys, is on our Facebook page. Once you've shared the picture, you stand a chance to win Vodacom airtime. And then all those people who've chosen the teacher with the most likes will stand a chance to win a Sony Xperia L. It's round 3, so get connected. Go to our Facebook page. All the information is there. Real G.
Ooh, mouthful, eh?
Yes.
Well, mindsetters, welcome again. Let's take the veil off. The veil that's protecting the brain. The little that I have left.
Oh, man.
What are we looking at, guys? Grade 11s? We are looking at human population in terms of the growth curve of the humans. In other words, you've studied the start of the different growth curves, geometric, logistic, the less of it. So we're looking at in terms of humans, you and I, Looney, myself, you guys out there, how's our population growing? That's one. We also want to look at age, gender distribution for different countries, and we study this by means of age, gender pyramids. This is what we look at there. We also want to look at the consequences of further human growth on the natural environment. In other words, should the human population grow in the way it's growing, where are we going to go with that? Okay? And this is what the scientists are telling us. We also want to look at the carrying capacity of nature, the environment. What is the carrying capacity? And we want to look a little bit at the South African environment. What's in store for us as locals in this beautiful country of ours. So that's where we are at. Not a lot of topics, but the reason why this was put on its own, we find in the exams, remember this topic was tested up to last year in the grade 12s. Now you grade 11s have this work. And we found that learners have great difficulty in analyzing, interpreting, and answering application questions based on the section. So hence, it was left as a standalone to make your understanding of this section easier. So good for you guys. Let's jump into the challenge question. And this is, as I told you, comes from the grade 12s. So it's adapted from March of this year, 2014, paper 2. This question was there. I put it there because we like to get you to look at different questions, and this particular question deals with a comprehension-based question. So they're giving you a passage, and you need to answer the questions that follow. The question is there. Have we posted it on the
challenge, yes.
Yes, it's there already. I'm not going to read the entire passage. They've given you a passage there, and the questions are number 1, state a method that is used to determine the human population size. From the passage above, give from the passage above, and that's key, it must come from there, give 2 reasons why the Chinese government decided it was necessary to slow down the population growth rate, explain how the one-child policy can influence the population size over many years or generations, and last but not least, question 4, in a country that values the birth of a son more than that of a daughter, explain, there's the verb, how the one-child policy could influence the gender structure of the population. Remember, there's 2 parts to it. The one part of the thing is telling you that this particular country is favoring to have sons. Now, if this country has a one-child policy, how would that affect and influence the gender distribution of that particular population? So that's your challenge question. You chew on that while we go through the summary. Keep that on the side. As soon as you have your answers, post them there. Remember also to answer the multiple choice questions that are given to you to test your knowledge. There are 5 only there. Little challenging, some of them, but there are only 5, so it can't take you too long to go through that. In terms of the human population growth curve, all populations are not the same. Human populations are different from natural populations that we have out in the wild, simply because humans have mastered the art of manipulating the environment to their advantage, including the wild animals and plants that are there. That's one of the main reasons. I've already mentioned that humans have found ways to interfere with the natural processes of mortality and natality. Remember, if an animal is ill, the animal doesn't go to a hospital, in the wild. If you have a dog or a cat or whatever at home, you're going to take that to the vet and so on. But in the wild, there's no such a system. Humans are researching all ills. In other words, over time, we've learned how sugar diabetes affects people, heart attack, and how to deal with it, how to put in stents, how to do a bypass, how to do a lung transplant, a heart transplant. So humans have devised those things there, and they affect they can then reduce mortality. At the same time, birth control and the rest of it, so they can influence natality as well. So there's a whole lot of things that humans can do. Humans then, because of these things, they tend to live longer, and in some areas, they may even produce more children. Remember, in certain areas, they'll produce less children as well. Further, humans have developed weapons, tools, and drugs to help them to defend themselves against the predators and to cure themselves from ills. And humans over time have also developed ways of hunting better and refining the diet that they eat. Also, remember, in the early ages, they were the animals, for that matter. They don't have a fridge, Looney. That they can catch a buck and catch 5 bucks and put them in the fridge, Now we got a fridge, we can keep it there. So it's a big difference. As silly as it sounds, it's a huge difference. We can store food for longer. The animals, meanwhile, they're hungry, they go out, they hunt, they eat, they get full, they sleep, and they carry on with their life till their next kill, in that sense, especially the predators, okay? Tools then also enable humans to build structures that will help them to live in. We build houses, so we're not living, and when it's cold and rainy and whatever, we've got a roof over our heads, where the animals don't. They don't have this, so the storm is going to affect them worse. Also, because of our knowledge, we've learned how to manipulate agriculture. So there's a dramatic increase in agricultural productivity in many countries, and this then brings about more food out there. But remember, do not confuse this that this means the whole world has food security. There are countries where food security is threatened. And that you studied, you will study, or you have studied under the section called human impact on the environment. So here we have a graph taken from a textbook to show you the human population. And here they're talking about, they're comparing less developed countries, or we can say developing countries, and more developed or developed countries. Look at the growth curves according to the statistics that are here. Look at this growth curve and look at this growth curve. You can already see the population differences between these countries. The age and gender distribution for different countries, I'm not going to go through all of that. You have it there. I'm going to go straight to this. This is what we call an age-gender pyramid. Different countries have different age-gender pyramids. And this particular, whenever they do an age-gender pyramid, they do it at a particular time. So at this point in time, they get the numbers of human beings, sex, age, etc., and they then plot it in this pyramid. This pyramid has a standard feature in that generally the males are on the left and the females are on the right. The base of the pyramid is generally showing you the birth rate because it's showing you the 0 to 4 years old. The thing in the middle is giving you the age. So we're having different categories of ages, 0 to 4 years old, 5 to 9, 10 to 14. Right at the top there, you got 80 plus. Those that are 80 plus. So at a particular point in time, these organisms or these humans were counted, and this is plotted. And in millions in this particular case, in millions. So if we go here, 0,4, if we're reading it, remember 0 is on the right-hand side, not on the left-hand side. So you're reading this way. So this particular population, 0 to 0, 0 to 4 years old, is between 2 and 2.5 million. So we can say 2.25 million males between that, and the female population in this particular graph is more or less the same. And as you can see that this particular pyramid is wide at the base and quite narrow on the top. So we say that in this particular pyramid, the birth rate is high. And because the top is narrow very quickly, we say that the death rate is also high. So they have a high birth rate and they have a high mortality rate. And with this, they have a low life expectancy. So high birth rate, high mortality, and a low life expectancy. Obvious, Luni. If you say that they're high mortality, that means many are going to die. So if you say that, then obviously the last one, the second one makes sense. They're low life. If they more die, then obviously the life expectancy is low. That means not many people, for those OBE learners out there, and that's all of you, sorry to say that, but it means that not many people reach old age. That's what we mean by say low life expectancy. People die younger. This generally is typical of developing countries. Okay? And that's the one there. We had the same thing there. We've shown you that one there. So this is an increasing population, or one that shows a developing country. Here we have a stable population or a declining population, because look at that. At that particular case, the number of children at the very infant age are less than what's there. Remember, this was taken at one time. It doesn't mean that these become that and that and that. That means in this population, this country, this room is the country, this studio is the country. In this, there are so many there, 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 and so on. So you can see that this is almost a declining or stable population. Or rather, sorry, not declining, it's a stable population because it's taking more or less a straight sort of a curve in that sense. Whereas this one here shows you a declining population. Okay? This is what you need to know. You need to know the characteristics of each of these graphs. The consequences to the environment are clear. You've studied some of that under human impact. We wouldn't have time to finish that mouthful now. Take a small break and Lune.
All right, Mindset is you're going to take a break. Quick congratulations goes out to Onke Nkwili. You have won yourself a Casio calculator from last week's grade 11 Test Yourself competition. Mindset is if you want to be like Onke, go to our Facebook page. The link is on our Facebook page. Enter the Test Yourself competition, and you'll stand a chance to win a Casio calculator. With that said, let's take a very quick break, and we'll see you straight after this. Welcome back, Mindsetters, from that break. Aslam, what was that?
No, that was a what? Spin.
Oh, and a jump.
And a jump, yeah. I'm trying to keep myself awake now.
No, it's fine, it's fine.
Welcome back, Mindsetters. I'm hoping you had a good break, and we were looking at those pyramids. Now, just some characteristics about those pyramids. Remember, the more developed countries, so we're talking about the developed countries, the characteristics of those countries, they're giving you there, North America, Australia, and Europe, those countries. Population growth is low. In other words, they will have a low, I think I must change to yellow now. So let's just do that. Oops. What did I do? What did I do? Okay, sorry guys. Now I'm all over the show. All right, so we were there. One more. Right, there we go. One more. Right, yeah, this is where we are. So we're saying yellow there. The low birth rate. So they promoting birth control and the rest of it, and sometimes people getting married later and so on. So they have a low birth rate. At the same time, they have low mortality rate. I will explain why just now. And with that, they would have a high life expectancy. So that's in your developed countries, right? Why do they have a low mortality rate? Simply because they so-called enjoy a good standard of living, and medical care and technology and food supplies are more readily available. Level of education is also high, and that can happen there. There's also a greater empowerment of women in these countries. There are more women in higher positions in companies and so on than we experience in Africa and other developing countries. But these three characteristics here are important, what I've listed there. And it's because of these things here that we get those characteristics. And the developing country or less developed countries like South and Latin America, the Caribbean, Africa, and Asia, excluding Japan because Japan falls somewhere else, population growth is expanding rapidly. Again, we've already discussed this one. High birth rate, high mortality rate, and low life expectancy. That's the story. Why? Because the people are in poverty, they are not, according to this, the education level in terms of the birth rate and so on is low. Medical care and technology are not readily available. Remember, take South Africa, for example. In the very, very, very deep rural areas, we do not have the same medical facilities that we have here, that we have in the urban areas. And even in the urban areas, you're reading in the newspapers, you're hearing on radio regularly of the poor service, the machines that are not working, and so on, and so on, and so on. And these are leading to the high mortality rate as well. And in Africa, we must also be man enough to accept that the AIDS-related death is also quite high, and it's causing a problem on its own. Food is often scarce, so here we talk about food. You can link it to food insecurity. Water insecurity as well. Level of educations are low. We're hoping through mindset learning, we're making that higher, no?
Yes.
You think we can help them, Luni?
Always.
Right? And in these countries, there's a high social value placed on having large families. It was a big thing to have a large family. Now, I'm not going to tell you you must have a small family or a large family. I'll leave it to you to think about that. That last part. You must think about that. You have religious beliefs. You have your own brain to think about it, your judgment, your reasoning. You can think about that. There's other factors as well that you have an open mind when you're talking about this as well. But remember those three things in a developing country that I mentioned earlier. All right? Have a growing populations such as those of less developed countries have to have a far more negative impact on the environment. It depends on a lot of things. It does not mean at the same time that more developed do not place strain on the environment. There's a nice question later about that. We'll talk about that. And there's the key to that question. Oops. More developed countries consume a large volume of natural resources. We'll talk about that later. And this is logic. It's nothing that you have to learn. And we can go on there. This is important now. Sustainable use of resources, whether developing, whether developed, whether stable, whether declining, sustainable use of resources, we've discussed this before, is absolutely crucial. Sustainable means we must use the resources in such a way that there will always be enough for future generations. And that for example, if we look at crops, they must use them in such a way that the land is able to recover from one harvest to the next. So it has time to recover, and then you can keep getting the same thing from there. Carrying capacity of the earth, that's the last thing I think we have here. What is this carrying capacity of earth? Do we know what the carrying capacity in terms of humans? Do we know that? One way to calculate it is to calculate the ecological footprint of different groups of humans. So we work out the ecological footprint and we see how much are they using from the environment and how much they will be sustaining in that way. Take into account the needs of humans, the food, the water, the fuel, this living space, etc., and put that together. Then you need to determine the impact of each need on the environment. How does this affect the environment? And a definition of the ecological footprint, which we spoke about last week, measures how much land and water human population requires to produce what it consumes and to absorb waste using current technology. That's a definition given there. In terms of South Africa, we must understand that we are what we call a developing country that is showing a great increase in the human population. So again, what does it mean? We have a high birth rate. We have a high birth rate. What happens because of this? It can create a demand, a greater demand for resources because of the growing population. And because of that, we tend to overexploit the natural resources. When there are large, especially large number of poor people, they must grow crops on a land that is inappropriate They're not educated. The land is not appropriate for farming. They use incorrect farming methods and so on. And a lot of this is now linking human impact to what we are talking about this. Okay? Most of this is short-term solution. They're going to feed those people, but long-term effects are going to be harmful to the environment. The problem now, remember, and we have to be honest about this last point that I'm going to make in this particular point. When apartheid was in place, fewer people had larger resources. The masses were crammed into small areas. And speak to your parents and their grandparents and so on, and they will tell you that father and mother started living together in a particular small 2-bedroom house or 1-bedroom house. And there came the first baby. The baby had to live and sleep, etc., in the same room. And this baby grew and got married. There was no house to get for that baby because there was no land available for them. So that child that grew up and got married lived with his parents in the same house. And remember, it was not only one baby, there were more than that. So many people lived in a small piece of land. Now, apartheid was abolished. We've got a new government in place, democracy is in place, and therefore there is a huge demand for housing. And we hear this hue and cry that we're not getting enough. It's not about the fact that houses are not being built. You drive around any area and you would see how many houses are being built. But the demand is absolutely great to address the problems of the past. You have to think about that. You cannot live in a vacuum. When we're talking about South Africa, we have to bring about the apartheid system into it and how that has affected how we're living today and the demand that we're having now. There are more cars on the road because more people can get loans, they can buy cars, more people are getting employment, etc., etc., etc. But that is a chapter on its own. So we can talk about that also later. Let's go to the questions now. The first question is telling you about Zimbabwe. Now let's read this graph. It's telling you that this graph is dealing with Zimbabwe in 2000. So in the year 2000, whenever this population count was done, this is the demographics of this population. There were so many at this level and so on and so on and so on. Very similar to the graph that I showed you earlier. So the question is saying, what are the advantages of using an age-gender distribution pyramid rather than a bar graph to illustrate the total population sizes when describing trends in population growth in a country, for a country? Now, we need to understand, if we had to put the same thing on a bar graph, we'll have the males, the females, the males, the females, the males, the females. That would not clearly show the shape of this pyramid. Oh, sorry, the shape of the growth. And with the pyramid, we are clearly seeing the characteristics of this particular population. With a bar graph, it would not have shown the same thing as clearly as the pyramid shows it here. So that is the advantage of showing it with a pyramid. What do you think accounts for the markedly expanded age-gender pyramid as shown in the graph indicating the population of Zimbabwe in 2000? What does this pyramid suggest about the health of the Zimbabwean population? Two questions. One is, what do you think accounts for the markedly expanded age-gender pyramid? In other words, expanded, what we're really saying is the high bottom end. And secondly, what does it tell you about the health of the Zimbabwean population? Let's go back. So first of all, what can we see in this graph? We can see that the base is very wide. Oops, hey, what are you doing? One more. The base is wide. So in other words, that Zimbabwe has a very high birth rate. That is what accounts for the expanding population. High population, why? Because it has a high birth rate. And they want to tell you, what does it, or they want you to tell them, what does the shape of this graph, let's go back and see if I'm talking nonsense or not, what does this pyramid suggest? Yeah, so the shape of this pyramid, what does it tell you? So now what do you have to look at? You look at the top of this pyramid. Is it thick? Is there many people there? No. From 40 onwards, you can see it's shrinking fast. So it suggests that the health of the population is not great. Why? Because they have a high mortality rate. And if they have a high mortality rate, that means they have a low life expectancy. Why is that so? Because their health care and the rest of it is not in a great shape. Okay. And now we look at another one in Japan in 2050. This is now, can this be a census or a population count that has been done already? Definitely not, because we're looking at 2050. So this is a prediction for the future. We're not yet in 2050. If you're in 2050, tell us about it. So we want to know what's happening in 2050, so we'll know what to do. Also tell me what car I'll be driving later so that I don't have to stress about those things now, you know. If you know, Luni, you know anything about 2050?
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
2050, you can predict for me. You can't, eh?
No.
If you can, you tell me, please. I need to know these things. Then I know how much I must work. Okay. So Japan is a country with advanced technology, excellent medical care, and a high standard of education. These are things that we've read before under characteristics. It has put a number of proactive plans in place to control its growing population. Study the predicted age-gender pyramid for Japan for 2050. Say what you think the consequence of these plans will be for Japan. All right? So, what do we notice here at the bottom? Getting bigger, getting smaller? No, it's getting smaller, definitely. So, the first thing we can say is that Japan predicts that they're going to have a low birth rate. And this in turn will decrease the population. And if it decreases, let's write that down so you can follow. So we're saying, first of all, it will have a low birth rate. That's what they are predicting. And at the same time, this will decrease the population. And in so doing, will decrease the demand on the natural resources. Right, so that's the first part. Let's go higher up. Hey, they're talking about people that are living up to 100 plus.
I want to
And
be
you
like
notice
that.
the females, they're
They-
lasting longer. You see that? Look
yes.
at the males. You know why?
Why? Why?
Because the men are husbands
Ugh,
and the females are wives.
no, Aslam.
So they stress the men so they won't live, so that they can eat the money when the man dies and give the pension over. Hey, you can't write the exams, you get no marks, especially if Looney is marking you in trouble. If I mark, maybe I'll give you the mark.
No, never. No.
Okay, so what can we see here? What's happening here, guys? It's quite a bit. Look at it, 75 to 79. We're looking at, in millions, at that time, just over 3 million. So it's quite a lot of people living. So what does that tell us? It has a low mortality rate, which in turn will increase life expectancy. Expectancy. Good. This is what we are saying. Can you see how I wrote this? I've written this in this way, so you're taking one point and you're showing a logical approach to what you are talking about. And you're saying what's happening. It's a low birth rate, and this causes a decrease in population. This, in turn, decreases demand on the natural resources. And a low mortality rate will increase life expectancy. Question 2, how does the growth of the human population on Earth compare with that of plants and animals? How does it grow? Humans, at the moment, we are in an exponential growth rate. And human population growth is far more rapid than the animal population growth on Earth at the moment. Okay? Which factor do you think may be the ultimate limiting factor of the global human population? Now, this is an open-ended question. In other words, what they're telling you, I mean, first of all, you have to understand what it's asking you. A limiting factor. What's going to stop this growth in human population? One may say disease. I mean, look at what we've got at the moment. Ebola, HIV, etc., cancer, but cancer is coming under control. Others may say climate change and the destruction of natural resources. I think we'll loony it up.
Loony it up.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Mindsetters, remember, if you have any questions and we don't get through them during the show, we do have various help desks that are in place for you guys to send your questions. I'll post all the information on our Facebook page. And remember, the Learn Extra Life Sciences Help Desk is proudly brought to you by Axel. So let's take a very quick break and we'll see you straight after this.
No.
Welcome back, Mindsetters, from that break. What's wrong with you?
What's wrong?
Yeah.
I'm trying to listen to you.
No, but you're going...
Yeah.
Oh,
My
Aslan.
earpiece is killing me today. You, just like that. Just
Yeah.
one look.
And give me your cell phone.
Put it away. Yeah, I was trying to see whether my guests are arriving, but they're here already.
Your peoples.
Yeah, my people. No,
Your entourage.
No, I got some other new ones today
Oh,
also.
okay. Because you're a real G today.
Variety. Variety is the spice of life. So let's move on, guys. Welcome back. I'm hoping you had a good break. Let's move with this last part. What name do we give the growth curve that illustrates the human population, the population growth of humans? Something going wrong there, but I'm reading that for you. It would be easy geometric growth. Okay? I just want to see something. Yes, the geometric. In what types of countries is most of this growth occurring, and how might it be curtailed? We've spoken about this earlier, guys. According to scientists, they're saying this is happening more in the less developed country, or what we would call the developing countries. And here, how would we curtail it? Meaning, how can we bring this down? We could educate them on the impact of large families on the environment, and therefore encourage smaller families. In Africa, you must remember also, we're having this big problem, and in South Africa, prevalent in schools. I've been reading in the newspaper plenty, teenage pregnancy. So we need to educate our children about this, because that's obviously, imagine in every school, if we're getting 12 to 15 babies a year. Now, there are, in one district sometimes, there are 36 high schools. In other districts, there may be 100 high schools. Now you do the math. I don't have to do the math. So if we start just at that level, if we can start reducing the teenage pregnancies, that will go a long way to do what we need to do to reduce the family size. Again, your religious beliefs, you can consider those things and keep that there as well. I'm not going to interfere with your religious beliefs in this issue, but that's what we are going to talk about there for now, according to the science. Account for the fact that a single child born in the United States, and I love this question, and I hinted earlier about it. Account for the fact that a single child born in the United States will have a greater impact on the natural environment than 12 children born in Mozambique. Wow. One child born in the United States has a greater impact on the natural environment than 12 children born in Mozambique. Simple, guys. What's the big difference? the heavy reliance in those countries, in the developed countries, on technology. I think if you watched the news yesterday, you would have seen the queues at the Apple stores in New York, because Apple iPhone 6 was released yesterday. Remember, August, September is the time when Apple comes out with their new phone. There were queues. People wait in long queues because they want to be the first to get this new technology. So you can imagine almost every person will have a cell phone and chargers in the houses. So for every one child there, the impact on the environment is huge. Whereas Mozambique, most of the children that we are talking about live in areas where there's very little technology. And so the demand on the environment is much less than the demand that the child in the United States will have. Contrast population characteristics of developing countries with those of developed countries. Make special reference to infant mortality rate and the age structure. So two things they want you to talk about. You want to compare them. And I'm going to do it in a little table just for ease. Remember, in a question like this, you do not answer with a table because that's not what they ask you to do. They ask you to contrast. You need to compare them. And contrast is giving the difference there mostly. So what are they saying? Infant mortality rate. So if we put in a third thing here, we start with infant mortality. Developing, developed. Developing, here it will be high infant mortality rate because of poor health, poor mother antenatal classes. They're not going, they're doing their own thing in the rural areas, so the children are dying. And here it would be low infant mortality rate. The age structure would talk about the life expectancy, or we can say that we can talk about the age structure, we can talk about the birth rate would be high. And here, high. High? Not at all. Don't be silly, boy. It will be low. We're comparing here, right? And we can talk of the death rate. And the death rate is infant mortality rate is talking about a specific band. That means between 0 and 4 years. That death rate. And now I'm talking about generally the death rate or mortality rate. Here it will be high, and here it will be low. And last but not least, life expectancy. So all these three things will talk about the age structures. And therefore, and here we'll say that it is low, and here it is high. We can also say in this comparison that there are more, the population is greater at the base of the population. In other words, in the younger age and very low in the higher age. So you're talking about the age structure. And whereas in a developed country, it is more or less even. It's a stable population. There is more or less the same number born and the same number dying. And there's a higher life expectancy. All right. This one here tells you about the birth rate of births per 1,000 people in population, while the death rate is the number of deaths per 1,000 people. The table below shows the birth rates in 3 countries, A, B, and C, between 1960 and 2000. Birth rate, death rate, birth rate, death rate, between these 3 years. Which country, A, B, or C, has a decreasing birth rate from 1960 to 2000? Very simple. You're looking at what they're talking about, birth rate. So you're looking at the birth rate from 1960, 15,8, 16,2, 14,3. So it went up, then it went down. B, 34, 35, 39. Definitely going up all the way. And the last one, 32, 17,5, 15,2. So that one has showing a decrease right through between all these 3 years. Okay? So our answer would be C, I hope. A is also, in this case, it will be A and C in this case because they both decreased, by the way. Let's look at it again, just to make sure that we are correct. It was 15.8, it went to 16.2, and then it dropped to 14.3. Not very declining right through, but it declined anyway from there to there. But the glaring one for me would be 32.9, 17.5, 15.2. So there is a steady decline in this particular one. So I would give the answer as C. Naughty boy got it wrong. Which country, A, B, or C, is most likely a developing one? What do we have to look at, guys? We have to look at high birth rate and high death rate. So let's look at A. It has 15.8, the death rate is 12.3. 34, 22. 35, 21. 39, 19. 32, 17, 17, 15. So this one is coming down, as we can see. So which one has the highest birth rate? If we look at it, it would be B. And the highest average death rate would be also be B. And let's hope, Luni, I'm right this time. Give a reason for that, and I've already given you the answer. Shows an increased birth rate compared to the other two countries. Death rate is still higher. The average death rate is higher. So that's what you look at there. Explain 2 reasons why the death rate in all 3 countries has decreased from 1960 to 2000. This is open again. Why has death rate decreased from 1960 to 2000? Obviously, one word will say advance. Advance in what? In all these factors here. First of all, we look at advance in healthcare. So people are getting immunized against major diseases like polio. In the past, in 1960, polio was something people couldn't cure. People were dying of polio. Also measles, smallpox, mumps. All of these things here was a problem. So now we're giving them immunization against it, so when it comes, they survive. Also, incidence of disease have decreased because of healthier lifestyles, because there's greater disposal of all these things, the waste and so on. Discovery of antibiotics. Over time, we found the antibiotics, so we're treating people for that. TB also used to kill many. It's still killing a lot of people, but it used to kill more in the past. Agriculture has become more efficient, so there's more food being produced, genetically modified food, etc. Healthcare has improved. 1,000 other things that you can talk about there. Right? Improve medical care. Those are the main areas there. Good. Study the age trend, the pyramid here. They're giving you that. Which one is a developed country? Look at it again. This one is wide at the bottom, getting smaller on top. This one, more or less stable there. So it would be pyramid 2. Tabulate 2 differences between pyramid 1 and 2 with respect to life expectancy and birth rate. Guys, I don't have to answer that again. We've done that already in our table earlier. Similar question. We're not going to answer that one. Give 1 reason why it is important for a country to know the age and gender structure of its population. Why do we need to know the age and gender structure of the population? 1 word, planning. Planning for what? Planning for schools, planning for hospitals, planning for roads. We need to know who to cater for. Where is this population greater? So what must we put in place? If we have a very large population at school-going age, that means we need to put more schools in, roads, etc., etc., etc. We will do that in that way there. Any questions from you, Aluni?
I can check quickly.
And we've done many pyramids, so I'm just going, while Luni is checking there, the last one is more or less like an essay question. Distinguish between the 3 growth types exemplified by countries in different stages of development and provide the characteristics of each. And obvious, we don't have time to answer the whole essay. What I wanted you to know is how do we answer this question? We must first of all look at the 3 growth types. And I told you earlier, we only learned 3. One is the increasing, the stable, and the decreasing. And you're going to provide the characteristics of each of these as we have done in the pyramids right through from the beginning in a summary right through. Luni.
One is asking what is the difference between density independent and density dependent factors?
Density, although it's not directly related to this, it's still part of population. Density dependent factor is a factor that depends on the size of the population. So in other words, if the size is small, the effect is low. When the size is large, it's going to affect it more. And a density independent factor, no matter what happens, it doesn't matter. Let's take a flood. If a flood comes into Gauteng now, whether there were lots of people staying in Gauteng or less, the effect of that flood will be the same. Whereas disease, if there's more people staying in Gauteng, that means the disease can spread faster. So it's density dependent on the size. Anything more, Looney? We got a couple of seconds.
What if I use geography, demography explanations to answer this question? Would I get penalized?
Geography, yes, you can link your geography stuff, but try to keep it in terms of the environment and the characteristics that we do. Those that do geography, this section is more or less similar. So you get a double chance. You have a double bite at the same apple. Looney.
Thank you. Thank you, Aslam, for the lesson. Mindset is at home. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, goodbye from us.